What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday to you, or I guess Monday if you're getting this first thing on a Monday morning. But we welcome you back to the Coast to Coast podcast. We are brought to you by Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. All right. Hey. Appreciate you being here. Coast to Coast podcast on InsideCarolina.com. I'm Joey Powell, your host. But you're not here for me. You're here for Sherrell McMillan and Sean Moran, who joined me. Sherrell, how you living, dude?
Pretty good. Coming off a Carolina successful week, so happy to talk about it.
Yeah, it's easier to do these shows when the heels cooperate. Sean, how you living, man?
Doing well, and looking forward to the next week in store on the road.
Yeah, well, I know you just want to see UVA play basketball live, so we'll see if we can't entertain that as best we can. Guys, as Sherelle alluded to, good week for the Tar Heels. They got two wins over Wake Forest at home on Wednesday night, and then another win against Notre Dame at home on Saturday morning, where they had some French toast, some tricks, and then played a little game of basketball. But I want to start with some stats between those two games. All right, we have uh, between the two games, 11 block shots, 16 steals, and only 17 turnovers for the Tar Heels. They also had 23 assists on 61 field goals, which is not great, but it's better than it has been in points. But guys, specifically from those blocks and steals numbers, I feel like the Tar Heels are having their defense precipitate their offense. And I don't know that that's ever a bad thing. Shirley, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Definitely never a bad thing. It's something that we talked about. If you can play good defense and get stops, then that can fuel transition. And when you get in transition, I think everybody is a little happier because everybody's getting shots. There's a lot more movement, and then that in turn, when you get in transition, refuels the defense. So it's all cyclical, especially for this group. I think they've seen it. I do wonder the opponents probably have something to do with it as well. I
Yeah.
don't want to considering the variance that's been discussed for almost 2 years now with this particular group. I don't want to read it too much into any particular trends because of the two opponents. We'll talk about it later, but Notre Dame and Wake Forest couldn't be any more different than how they're going to be played against Virginia or how Virginia is going to play offense. So
Yeah.
um, we'll see. But I do, to your point, it was a good week, and it's good to see the defense actually do it. Um, and I think just being at home for those guys is really important considering how long in between that they went for, with home games and everything. So successful week, and like you said, good defense participates transition offense, which is really important for UNC.
Yeah, I mean, I think they had two home games over a span of 44 days and then two back-to-back home games over a span of 4 days. So that home cooking certainly is trying to get things back to a norm and let those guys get more into a bit of a routine. Sean, specifically one player I think that helps energize this defense and energize this team because he brings something different to the table. But it's nothing new to this podcast because you guys have been talking about this. You've been scouting him as Seth Trimble. When Seth Trimble is inserted into the game as Pete Nance is dealing with a back injury against Wake Forest, he really brings just a different skill set to the table. And, you know, you can use energy, you can use pep, you can use whatever you want to talk about this team. They just seem to have a different feel about him when he's on the court. How do you feel like he makes this team better?
I think he definitely makes it better defensively and offensively he does, even though he's still kind of coming into his own. I think we've seen the on ball pressure, whether he's getting 5 minutes a game like he did in Pittsburgh, or he's getting 15 plus minutes. He's definitely going to bring that. You mentioned the blocks. He was responsible for four of those over the two games, and when they go to the three guard lineup, it's a pretty small from a height wise lineup, but given his strength and athleticism, he has no problem switching onto the bigs, and even when they try posting him up, he can contest those probably better than the majority of other fours or fives. So he brings that switchability, but also that tenacity on defense that can block shots, ignite the fast break. He excels in getting out in the fast break offensively, and I guess Wake Forest 4 for 4 offensively, some cuts, some good finishes. Didn't really have that against Notre Dame, and that's where I think he's still coming into his own. If anybody listened to the podcast we did when we had Seth Trimble on it, this is probably close to 2 years now, year and a half. We talked about what's his go-to move, and he didn't hesitate in saying getting to that 12 to 15 foot pull up off the left hand, and we really haven't seen that a lot, and we haven't seen we've seen his explosion around the rim, but we haven't seen any of these highlight dunks that we were accustomed to in high school. So I think he's still trying to figure out offensively. I think one particular possession when Caleb passed it to him, he was wide open and he hesitated. He got bailed out with the foul call, but he was still a little unsure of I think what he wanted to do. So as he continues to get more comfortable offensively, I think that will just add another threat. But he definitely has changed the game and has given UNC another strong option in terms of a lineup that Hubert Davis should feel comfortable going to in the second half of games.
I love that you mentioned his athleticism. We were talking with Brandon Robinson on Inside Carolina live with Tommy Ashley prior to the Notre Dame game, and Brandon really praised his athleticism and his ability kind of to get off the floor. I firmly believe that at some point this season, young Mr. Trimble is going to catch a body when folks least expect it. But Sean, I want to stay here a little bit. It seems to me like when Seth Trimble's out there, the rest of the team elevates their on-ball defense a little bit better. Do you feel like that's safe to say, or is that maybe me reaching a little bit?
I think definitely against Notre Dame, I'd say that was more after that first 4 minutes of going away from the defense they started into just switching everything. But I think in general, people can see the tenacity that he's playing with, and you've seen RJ and Caleb pick it up as well. So I do think you see the tenacity he's playing with, and it has carried over. But one thing in the Notre Dame game, they were getting picked apart those first 4 minutes in pick and roll situations every which way, and then they came out of that first TV timeout and started switching, and I thought it really simplified the scheme for everybody in terms of, okay, just switch. You don't have to think too much about a few steps down the road, but also kind of help in their mind clarify what they needed to do. And with that, I know we've picked on Caleb a lot defensively for his lapses, and when he gets involved in pick and rolls, it can usually be a advantageous situation for the offense. But when he's playing on ball, just straight one-on-one, I think can be a really good defender, and I think we saw that in the Notre Dame game, even in the Wake Forest game, when he was just responsible for the man in front of him, and I think he was able to lock in. Same with RJ. You could tell they were talking a lot more just in general, because there were situations where they switched, but then they were trying to get Armando back to the big, and that takes talking on the court and being locked in together. So I did like that, and that's definitely something on Tuesday that they're going to have to be fully locked in with how UVA runs their offense. And then last thing I'll say is Armando. You can't really switch everybody if your big can't stay in front. And Notre Dame didn't have any crazy athletes, but I think it goes to Armando's credit that he's able to switch on whatever player, and he moves his feet well enough that you're not going to be able to just ISO him and fully take advantage of him.
Yeah, Sherrell, I love what Sean said about talking about Caleb Love's man defense, because I do think he's shown his ability to use his length and be a bit rangy when he's playing straight up man, especially when UNC is switching everything. But we saw something this past week where, for folks who just want to look at Caleb's scoring and just want to analyze that as, the only facet of his game, you did see, two totally ends of the spectrum where he was shooting a lot against Wake and not making shots. But then he started hitting some of those shots again against Notre Dame, which everyone is comfortable and remembers seeing from him. I want to see if you might be able to elaborate a little bit, Sherrell, on how Caleb has started to mature and allowing his defense to kind of trigger his offense, or his defense to contribute to the team until his offense comes around.
I think it's a long time coming, and something to your point that he's been working on. Sometimes it's a situation where his offense gets his defense going, and I think that's the easiest thing to do when you're hitting shots. You're feeling good about yourself. Of course, you'd be more engaged on the defensive end. I think where the maturity comes in is trying to do the opposite when you are struggling offensively and you're not making shots and you're feeling down about yourself. Can you pull yourself together enough to play, solid to great defense. And I think on Wednesday night against Wake Forest, yeah, he was bad offensively. There's no one's going to dispute that. And there were times during that game that he was bad defensively as well, but he was able to get himself together to a point where he played some good defense down the stretch, particularly once, to Sean's point, once they went small, those final 14 minutes against Wake Forest. You saw him play some pretty good defense. I think he got a steal or two, a couple of deflections, and was able to stay in front of his man. So that is a positive. But for Caleb, I think again it comes down to how can you impact the game when your shot isn't going in? Because when you're as streaky as he is, he was in the first half, he had a pretty high percentage. I think he ended up 6 of 16, which for Caleb Love, that's fine. You'll take that and call it a day. But he was again in passing lanes, bothering some of Notre Dame's guards, and in general, just having a really good, solid floor game. So if he can continue to do that when his shot's not going in, it bodes well for UNC. But again, I think Notre Dame was a really good matchup, particularly for the 3-point guard lineup.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite as, I don't want to say sold, maybe bullish is the right word. I need to see it against a couple more different styles before, I buy into it being maybe something they can move to on a more permanent basis. But for now, it's working. And it has helped Caleb, I think. It's helped Seth. It's definitely helped RJ. You can definitely tell it's helped Armando a lot. You're really starting to see his ability to control the game from the post. Some of the passes he's able to make when he's double teamed, he just makes a lot of good decisions. There are a couple of poor ones, but a lot more good ones than bad ones these last 2 games. And kind of segues into, UVA with how they double and everything. So, yeah, it was a good practice for UNC, I would say, for UVA.
Hold on to that. We're going to get to the UVA stuff in a second. I want to also bring something up is somebody who is as scrutinized as Caleb Love is, I think Tar Heel fans have to appreciate the fact that he's so quick to cape up for his teammates. We saw in the situation with what's his nuts for Notre Dame,
Ryan.
Cormac Ryan, when he had that, what I felt like was a pretty dirty play on a Puff Johnson dunk. The first person to be by his side and kind of stand up for Puff Johnson was Caleb Love. Sherrell, I want to see if you might be able to tell us, how does that help a locker room, or what does that say to a team when you've got somebody who's that quick to stand up for his brother in the same uniform?
Oh, it means a lot. I mean, if if you've been following North Carolina basketball for a long time, you go all the way back to 2008, 2009, in Tyler Hansborough's last game in the Smith Center, when his face is contacted by an elbow. Let's just put it that way. And I remember the discourse around the time was, well, why aren't his teammates getting up and getting in Gerald Henderson's face, and what's going on? And that really bothered, I think, the fan base and a lot of people following the program. So Caleb Love has had an incident this year too, where he was on the ground and kind of stepped over / kicked and everything. So I think that's part of it. But when you see your teammate like Caleb, you see someone who's got stature, who's done a lot of big things, I think it means a lot to someone like Puff, and I think it means a lot to the rest of the team, because it does show that he's in the moment, he's there.
Yeah.
His bags are unpacked. That's always a question that I think fans have with players like Caleb, who have talent, who have NBA aspirations, is how much do you really care about this? How much are you willing to do to show that you're here, that you're unpacked? And for me, that was one of those moments. And because he didn't hesitate, really, honestly.
No, not at all.
It happened, and he went and got in the guy's face. Now whether or not he should have maybe done it that way is another story. I'm not a big fan of like puffing up your chest and all that stuff. But the fact that it was on his mind to, I've got to protect my teammate, I think is, to your point, a good thing.
And that it was instinctive, right? Like you said, it took no time at all for him to be right there at Puff's side saying, hey, you're not going to do my boy like that. So I think that's something positive for folks to look at, especially since people seem to want to kind of overanalyze Caleb Love as a person inside of this team. Sean, Sherrell touched on this a little bit, and I want to kind of use this to lead into discussing UVA this week. Armando Bacot, I think one of the times where he has struggled offensively is his lack of ability to recognize when a double team's coming or where it's coming from. I think that at times when he's been able to, or when he hasn't been able to recognize that, the offense is kind of bogged down. But what we've seen specifically this year is that not only is he recognizing when it's coming, he's recognizing where it's coming from, and he's shown a proclivity to be able to get the ball out and help the offense move and keep the ball moving and help the offense, I guess, kind of keep some tempo and some fluidity about it. How do you feel like he's improved in his game there? And how do you feel like that's going to speak, especially against a defense like the pack line defense that UVA likes to employ?
I think it's been a mixture of him improving as well as UNC in general. And just going back a few weeks ago, it felt like he was struggling. It looked like he still wanted to attack the basket. He still wanted to find his shot. And when the double team was coming, he was forced to retreat. And that few seconds gave the defense their opportunity to relax. But then it was almost a shift where, okay, he recognized it. He's ready to make the pass, and the opponent has kind of junked up the lane, but UNC wasn't in a proper position to make them pay. And we saw that very first possession. He found Caleb in the corner for the three, but I think this is going to be instrumental with UVA. We know they're going to double the post. Last year with Brady Manick, they're able to find some quick hitters, and if you make quick decisions, you can beat it. But the other thing in that first possession was Leaky attacking the middle of the lane hard. So now somebody, and we've seen that going back to Iowa State, that happened for a basket, and we've seen that on occasion. But I still think the more we see that, the better, because now it makes Leaky a scoring threat given his size, and it makes a defender have to step up and recognize Leaky, because he's usually the one they're backing off of. And now you have shooters on the perimeter. Even with Seth Trimble out there, he's able to make quick decisions. But now you just have a better passing lane for Armando, whether he wants to hit Leaky as a cutter, or now he has three options on the perimeter to choose from. So I think it's been Armando's ability to make quicker decisions, as well as UNC's ability to make them easier for him, when the double team comes.
For folks that are unfamiliar with UVA's pack line defense, I think you may be able to see, and you hit it on it there a little bit, you may be able to see some of the vulnerabilities when you have a player like Leaky Black attacking specific parts of that defense. Where are the holes in the defense for North Carolina to attack when they're going against UVA this week?
I mean, definitely when it does come to the double team. I know we used to see Kennedy Meeks and Isaiah Hicks, kind of that big to big quick pass as you cut down the lane. I think it'll be interesting to see what lineups are utilized in that UVA game, but that is that big to cutter right down the lane. Sometimes they can be a second slow and you can get an easy layup. It's infrequent, but if you can make that, it's really about making the first pass, but really the second pass. If you can make that quick, that's where UVA, I think, really struggles, because they're fully dependent on teams not having that ability, where they pick and roll situations, they trap the ball handler, and teams can make that first pass, and UVA is great at stepping up, but they're not great at making that second decision, and that allows teams to recover. So it's really going back to the just quick decision making. The team itself, they're never really great individual defenders. Keke Clark is a very pesky on-ball defender, but if you put those guys in one-on-one, I'd say they're average at best, but they're just great as a team. And they're great helping off, recovering, and just making things difficult. So if you can get some easy baskets, cutting off the pass, but also if you can open it up with a three-point game. Last year it was Caleb Love hit a few big shots right before halftime at home, which opened it up a little bit. In the ACC tournament, it was probably might have been UNC's one of their worst offensive games when they held UVA to 42, and Brady Manick had 1/3 of their points. So even that game, it was a blowout, but outside of Brady, UNC did really struggle. It's just they didn't really need that much. So it's going to come to their ability to take smart outside shots and be able to hit them, because the past two games they've hit, I think, 8 and 9, and that's the number we always talk about of if they can get to, and they've been able to do that at a good percentage.
Sherrill, this UVA team is good. They've been as highly rated as I think number 2 at one point this year. They got 3 losses, but their 3 losses I think are to what may turn out to be really good teams in Pitt, Miami, and Houston. Sherrill, what do you expect to see, or what are you looking forward to against this or between the Tar Heel UVA match this week? I'm excited for Kihei Clark in his 9th year to play against RJ Davis again. But what are you specifically excited to see when the Tar Heels go to Charlottesville on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I bet between Clark and Leakey, this game has the 2 guys who have played the most games. Leakey just finished his, I think, 137th game at UNC. I think Clark is somewhere around there. So 2 guys who've almost played 300 games at their respect, combined at their schools. I think whether or not Pete Nance plays is a big deal in this game, because Jalen Gardner, let's just say whoever UNC puts at the 4, Jalen Gardner is going to be a tough matchup for, because he's a big, burly, strong guy. That's a tough matchup for Leakey, despite Leakey's length. It'd be a tough matchup for Puff, despite Puff's length. You would think that Nance being, 6'10", 6'11", and a little bit taller than those 2 guys would make it tougher for Gardner. So I'm very curious to see if he plays, because if not, it's really going to test the limits of this 3-point guard lineup that they've played so much, especially when it comes to rebounding, because Armando's going to have his hands full with Shedrick. So that's one thing to watch. And then UVA has 4 guys who've taken at least 44 threes who shoot better than UNC's highest percentage. So let me say that again.
4 guys.
4 guys who shoot better than UNC's best shooter this year. Beekman is up around 50% from 3. And it's not like he's taken 5 or 6. He's on a pretty good volume. So again, just like last game, I know there's an urge and a desire to kind of help off your guy, but what you should be doing is running guys off the 3-point line. If you give up some layups, which they did against Notre Dame, Leseski had a couple, Starling had a couple, I think you can live with that.
You'll
but
take
you
that.
But you don't want to live with wide open threes, because Franklin drives and sucks in a defender, and you leave Beekman wide open. You that can't happen. So an aggressive man-to-man defense, and maybe it's a situation where they did like they did Saturday, and they switch a lot to kind of try to prevent some of those things. So those are a couple of things I'm looking for. In 3 of UNC's 5 losses, they've been destroyed from the 3-point line. I mean, so Alabama, they were -27 from the 3-point line. Iowa State, I think it was -18, and then Virginia Tech, I think it was -12. So in 3 of the 5 losses, they just haven't shot well, and the other teams have gotten hot. So to me, it goes back to the 3-point line. To Sean's point, can Baycott and Puff, I think this is a big game for Puff too, because he's so smart and such a good passer. Can Baycott and Puff, when they're in the game together, find open shooters, and then can those open shooters knock it down? Don't mean to sound overly simple, but I think it's as simple as that.
Well, and when you fold that into the fact that UVA does not want a lot of possessions, UVA wants to minimize the number of possessions for themselves and their opponents. So if they're getting less possessions, but they're getting more points per possession because they're hitting open threes, that's a great recipe for Tony Bennett's crew, and a bad recipe for the Tar Heels on Tuesday night.
That's usually why they're so high in KenPom too.
Yep.
Whether or not they're actually good, that's always why they're so high in KenPom.
The efficiency is there, and that's their recipe. Guys, I want to take a quick break. Remind everybody, hey, listen, make sure if you are not subscribed to this podcast or to any of Inside Carolina's great podcasts, go ahead and take care of that. We would also appreciate it. I would appreciate it if you, that's right, you, the listener/viewer right now, would take a second and rate and review us. Just lets us know if we're doing a great job. Better reviews also, mean better things for us as far as being able to provide content and being able to just elevate our game for you guys and making sure that we're delivering what you expect from Inside Carolina and from Inside Carolina's normal high level of content. So we'd appreciate that. Take a quick break. Let the national guys pay some bills. We'll be right back on the Coast to Coast podcast here on InsideCarolina.com. All right. Thanks for sticking around. Another edition of the Coast to Coast podcast here on Inside Carolina. I'm Joey Powell. With me, as always, Sherrell McMillan, Sean Moran. Hey, Sean, I got to ask you, what did you get for Christmas?
Got some Johnny t-shirt.
Nah, see, listen, I'm supposed to be the one with the big aha moment to lead into the Johnny T-shirt read, but you, sir, kudos to you because you have absolutely beat me to the punch. I'm glad that you got some of that Johnny T-shirt goodness for Christmas because anybody who's listened to this show knows that Johnny T-shirt is the place for UNC gear. Whether you got good gear at Christmas or not, you can take care of that now. Go to Johnny T-shirt and johnnytshirt.com. They'll start getting spring stuff in very soon, believe it or not. If you did not get the warm coat with the Jumpman logo or the UNC logo, or maybe it's not from Jumpman, maybe it's from Cutter and Buck or Columbia or whomever. Johnny T-shirt can take care of you. Inside Carolina premium subscribers get that extra 10% off the top there already. Amazing prices. Visit Johnny T-shirt online or go to their store right there on East Franklin Street. Patronize them because we appreciate what they do for us and all the support that they give to Inside Carolina. All right, Sean, aside from caring about what you got for Christmas, I understand as well that you had a chance to watch Mr. Drake Powell play some ball lately. And I want to hear what you took away from that because, again, since he's committed, we've talked about kind of what a Swiss Army knife he is and how he's kind of good at a lot of things, but not really great at any one thing. Talk about his evolution and what you're seeing now versus what you saw from him 6 or 9 months ago.
Sure, and this stemmed from Ben Sherman going to the game on Tuesday, I believe, and posting about Drake's performance. Luckily, was able to find video of that game and go through it. And to me, having seen him in person in early July and then seeing him now, obviously AU and high school are completely different and different roles. Where in high school, somebody going to Carolina should be the go-to guy on their team. But I think what I saw, one, he hit 5 3-pointers, so that was an area of improvement that we've continued to talk about. His shot form looks a lot, not a lot better, but definitely a little different in a good way. But offensively, 6'6", 6'7", really the first step he has was something that jumped out in terms of this, long, quick. He's able to attack. Obviously, very bouncy. That's something we've discussed in the past. But going back to the 5 threes, it was catch and shoot. It was in a few different situations, and watching that game and seeing his ability to score so easily. We've talked about the wing position and needing a true wing scorer, and it was almost saying, hey, I was questioning that ability from him, but that really jumped out to me as saying, hey, this Drake could actually be the guy that they're looking for in that true wing. So more than just a jackknife, but a guy that can be a go-to scorer at times when you need. So looking forward to watching him play some more, but it was evident, from some of the blocks he had, as well as some of the drives, the athleticism that we know about, but also just looked like a completely different player than the one that I saw for CP3, where he was almost selfless to a fault, making good passes, but maybe overpassing and not really looking for a shot, to a guy that was very confident in all aspects of his game.
Well, again, that's going to be the type of thing that our listeners and viewers are going to want to hear. Local kid that is top 50-ish, around that top 50 mark for his class, but I think folks are really going to be excited to see how he's matured, what he's adding to his game, and how he's continuing to improve. Sherrell, we did have a visitor on campus in Chapel Hill this past weekend. Ian Jackson did make it to campus. Is there anything you'd like to add about that before we get out of here today?
Not a ton. We're still reaching out and everything, trying to get with him. He left campus about 3 p.m. on Sunday.
Okay.
So he got there late Friday night. They had a game, had a very good game. I think he got her in around midnight on Friday, and then stayed until Sunday at around 3:30, something like that. But yeah, a typical official visit. Got to do all those things. I think it was not important, but there were some alums around this past weekend, so I think that was a good thing. So we'll see what happens. We've said for years that if North Carolina can get him on campus, then stranger things have happened. I still, from what we've been hearing, it's still unlikely that North Carolina eventually signs him or gets a commit from him. But it was unlikely with Walker Kessler. It was unlikely with Brandon Wright back in the day. So these things do happen sometimes where what it looks like going into the visit is changed once the visit is over. So we'll see.
Well, shoot or shoot, and Hubert Davis is certainly shooting his shot with Ian Jackson. Obviously, folks, if you're listening to this show, you know that if there is any development around that commitment around that recruitment, God, don't take that away.
John.
Recruitment. That's a slip of the tongue by yours truly. There's nothing else there. If there is if there is any development around that recruitment, you know that we'll have it. Sherrell will be all over it, and Inside Carolina will post as things develop if they develop. But appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here, Sherrell?
No, I will say we hope to have Eric Blassie on here in the next few weeks because he's going to see a lot of James Brown. He's going to see a lot of Elliot Cadeau, and he's also going to see Simeon Wilcher. So it would be good to kind of get the national perspective on where those guys are now that they're all either UNC signees or commits. And then from an Inside Carolina perspective, Zayden High will be playing in North Carolina in a few weeks, so we hope to make it to that. But it's going to probably get a little quiet with recruiting because, they're done in 2023 and they're probably 75% done in 2024. So we'll have to be a little creative in how we cover recruiting since UNC is getting commitments so quickly and so early.
Well, who knows? I mean, I always know that when Bossy's on the show that it's very well received and he brings a lot to the table. Who knows? We can get a little creative and see what we can pull out of our hats a little bit later. Sean, anything you want to add before we wrap up today?
Sure. I'll add the two pennies. I know I went one over last time. First one, RJ Davis, who we didn't really touch on, but just how well he has been playing, but especially this week, 7 of 12 from 3, really offensively, starting that second half against Wake Forest was really the guy that got UNC going, kind of, driving left with a pull up, but also him and Armando working together. He has a 9 assists, 1 turnover over those 2 games. So he is at that RJ level, the tournament RJ level that everybody was hoping for with how he's been playing. And then for UVA, just interested to see the matchups. I know in the tournament they put Leaky on Kiki Clark and just completely took him out of the game. But UVA's 2 wings are a lot better than they were last year, as Sherrell mentioned, with Beekman and Franklin. So curious to see the matchups on Tuesday and how those start out and if they change once the game flow begins.
Yeah, I remember when Reese Beekman first started playing for UVA, and he was such a minor contributor. It's hard for me to take him seriously now, but he absolutely is somebody to be reckoned with for that roster. And it'll be interesting to see how North Carolina, like you said, attacks he or the other wing, or how they defend those guys. Fellas, I always appreciate it. Appreciate what you guys bring to the show. I know our subscribers and our listeners appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great week. Thanks to Johnny T-Shirt for sponsoring the show. Thanks to John Siegley for producing the show. And thanks to everyone for listening and being a part of it. We will certainly be back very soon. But until then, for Sherrell McMillan, for Sean Moran, I'm Joey Powell. We will talk to you guys next time on the Coast to Coast podcast here on InsideCarolina.com.